Hello and welcome to News Night. I'm Lanre Lasese. Now, President Bola Tinubu and the First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, have returned to Nigeria after a 2-day state visit to the United Kingdom. It was a fairy tale of a visit filled with ceremonial grandeur and symbolic milestones, horse-drawn carriage rides, colorful military parades, and a royal reception at Windsor Castle created a spectacle of pageantry not seen in decades for a Nigerian leader. But beyond the pomp and glamour, there was also a visit of bilateral engagements. And as expected, many Nigerians are now asking, what is the real worth of this trip? What are the tangible benefits for the country? And how should they measure this trip against the cost and frequency of such foreign trips? Tonight, we sit down with Professor Jideofor Adebe, a political scientist, governance scholar, and public affairs commentator, to unpack the symbolism, the substance, and the implications of this visit for Nigeria's path at home and abroad. Prof, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lasisi.
And thanks for making the time.
Thanks a lot.
Now, I would like us to first start with the President's just concluded 2-day visit to the United Kingdom. I don't know if you also watched it. It was grand.
Yeah, it was.
Beautiful carriages, and the reception looked like, wow, top class. But you know, a lot of people are asking, what's in it? So I would like to get your view. What did you feel? How did you feel? What did you see?
Well, in terms of symbolism, yes, you really have to give it to the president that it was a very, very symbolic moment for him. Actually, he is actually the second African president in history to have been invited to the Windsor Castle. The first person was William Tubman in 1962. Yes, he's the, second Nigerian in the last 37 years. But normally they don't visit Windsor Castle.
And that's significant.
Yes, very significant. So you can think of, apart from William Tubman, the others that visited, you can think of Cyril Ramaphosa.
Yes.
In 2022, November 2022. Then you talk about was the man that succeeded Mbeki was 2001, and the other guy 2010. The one that was removed. So it's something significant. And Babangida 1989. So yes, there are not many to be given such a state treatment. So for whatever it is worth, and it is worth something in terms of symbolism. But beyond the symbolism, we also have to look at the real things. One of the achievements, was that there was a commitment, £746 million commitment,
yes,
to develop renovating two ports in Lagos. Of course, the flip side to that concrete, quote-unquote, concrete achievement is that those who have been accusing him of concentrating development projects in the West and of full urbanization will also seize upon it and say, oh, again, it is in Lagos. So overall, and I think, let me also say something, I like the courage of the First Lady, Mrs. Oluremi Tinubu. I mean, we really need to give her credit because she's really carried herself with poise and elegance in this administration, in contradistinction to the image she caught during the 2023 election, where she was associated with hate speech. So she's been an asset, in my opinion, to the government. But having said this, it's still a lot of work to be done. When you look at the kind of, the benefits, the intangible benefit from that trip, you just oppose it with the kind of people that were appointed as ambassador designates. And the fact that we still really have not posted ambassadors to so many countries. Then you also start to, well, where does this intangible benefit, where do we locate it, where do we place it? for such a high remember also he was given such a high profile treatment in France. In France.
Yeah, true.
So it's, there's been a lot of external validation from IMF, from, you can't take it away from him. And let's see how this pans out, how he's able to convert this external validation to something tangible. Because in the final analysis, your domestic audience will have to accept the validation, the external validation. Otherwise, it sounds hollow. But give it to him. It was a good outing.
Now, let me first take you on that issue. You said the external validation, you call it. There's been a lot of that. You've mentioned some of them, World Bank, IMF. And then there's this invitations. This is not the first state visit that he's been invited. Saudi Arabia, he was invited. He's gone to a lot. And to a lot of Nigerians, they wonder, how valuable is this external validation?
Well, I can say it's when you have external validation like that, for the Western countries and investors, it will draw their attention, but that doesn't mean they will jump in. Okay. They still have their own people who do risk assessment. Yeah. For example, when some people were saying, oh, it's because of somebody's report in Onitsha that Trump did something, that's small intelligence, because these people know it. These people have the intelligence on the ground. So whatever they are saying, sometimes they may exaggerate it because they want to use it to get something else. But they do, if they keep on harping on it, maybe there is something the government needs to look at. As I said, most of the visiting heads of states are received at Buckingham Palace. But this is Windsor, so it's something big. I am critical of other trips, Saudi Arabia and others, because these are things that your external affairs minister, foreign affairs minister could have easily done, or the trade missions in those countries. But this level of international engagement, I think, is quite good. I do not buy the idea that because there were incidents in Borno, that he should have cancelled that, because it takes a long time to plan this type of deal, this type of visit. And if he is able to harness the fallout from them, he's drawn a lot of attention. King Charles holding his hand, he's saying, this is a man I can trust. It depends on how he's able to convert it. He went to Downing Street, number 10. There were also conversations about alleged genocide and other issues about border security. As they try to bring global attention on you, the positives is also those attention. If they bring attention, they are not stupid people. They do their own research. They're commission consultants. So other issues or other questions that probably you might not want to ask should come up. For example, why should a country like this have somebody like Reno Makri as an ambassador, Fani Kayode, Jimo Ibrahim to be to United Nations, Nigeria Airways, Newswatch? There's a lot of mismatch between the kind of reputation you want to create as somebody who is a big dream and with the kind of people you are putting in place to go and represent the country. I think there's a big mismatch.
And you think that's a minus?
I think it's a huge minus. I mean, that symbolism of holding his hand, for me, this is somebody like who is doing something I admire. And then if you say in these reforms, many Nigerians don't like to call it reforms because they were there. There's exactly what we had on in the 80s under structural adjustment program. If this is a man I can do this, I trust him, he's my friend, you can do business with him. They are not stupid. They do commission their consultant. I start to look critically at the people around you, because you're not going to be everywhere. I have to interrogate the people who represent you in the missions and the embassies. And then you have some characters. You have Femi Kanayode. You have Rio Mokro. So you have Jimo Ibrahim.
So you're saying indirectly that while he's doing some things right, and reaping from the global, he's still letting down by appointing to this same global.
Yes, not just that. I've mentioned the issue of alleged urbanization. But of course, he can capitalize on some of this capital, intangible capital that he's now getting, and then be able to convert it properly. And that means to show when people see the team you are assembling, If they say, look, this man I like his reform agenda, you know, they look at the people you are putting in place. They're people of character. They are people with pedigree. Not then you say, well, I mean,
you do something.
Otherwise it becomes hollow. Remember, after the applause, the British press itself will start to interrogate you.
Yes.
Would start to interrogate your measures. Already there was a write-up in Chatham House website, about the visit, not too critical, but saying that in the final analysis, it is the domestic audience, the metrics for measuring the success of any regime will be internal. Are people more hopeful today than they were before? Do they feel better, secure today than they were before? Do they feel better now than before? These are important metrics. So if external validation will help you to transform your agenda into answering these key questions, then you're succeeding.
Now, you mentioned something very critical, and I think when you get down to it, it's something a lot of people keep asking. It looks good. We are there, like you said, global validation and all. But yes, you mentioned we had the signing of the port renovation and all. But the question a lot of people ask is, are we clear what they want from us? Because it looks like, yes, it appears we got some things, $1.5 billion.
Yeah. Remember the trade relations in 2015 and 2025.
Yes.
The bulk of our trade, with UK was 8.1 billion pounds. We are 36th in terms of volume of trade. Our 36th number to UK trade in terms of, we are not the largest. And 8.1 billion is significant, but not that significant compared to, say, China, where in the same period of 2025, our volume of trade with them was 16 billion, roughly, 16 billion pounds, double. So what I'm trying to say is that the foreign minister had come here, Prince Charles had come here with Brexit, the European Union, UK not really at the center of the European Union now. They are trying to create new markets, new avenues. And Nigeria remains a significant player in the West African sub-region.
Yes.
Of course, there is, the same issue that President Tinubu's closeness to France also alienates countries, the Sahel states. Not just the Sahel states, other French-speaking West Africa, where anti-French sentiments are strong. So these are some of the contradictions they have to manage. So they have come up with the doctrine of independent autonomy, or whatever they call it. But what autonomy do you have in an environment where you have limited room to maneuver in the external environment? We see. But I'm trying to say that these are, of course, there is always unintended consequence of any policy move. It's up to the president and his team to take a second look. If coming into this type of stage has suddenly elevated your stature, you have also up your game in your national policy, in your nation building strategies, not to concentrate projects in one area, in the kind of team you assemble. People not just competence, but people, with character, people who you can be proud are representing the country. You can sit down as Lasisi and ask yourself, if you take a rundown of the list, the designate, how many of them will you be proud to go to meet and say, look, this person is representing me? That's a question you should answer yourself. And that's, I think, a question the administration itself will answer.
Going forward, you touched on the issue of the agreements. And, yes, we've done a lot of that, but people are really skeptical. This one is even good. You have very clear, an infrastructure you can hold on to, where it is that there are ports. So in a short while, we're hoping to be able to see, okay, the renovations has started. But a lot of times you hear MOUs are signed. And even in the strip, you have a lot of MOUs. And people wonder, look, a lot of times you come back, yes, we've signed a lot of MOUs, and then you get nothing at the end of the day.
MOU simply means very little. If I sign an MOU with you,
yes,
I still have to go and do my due diligence. I still have to commission consultants to do my risk assessment. So it depends. Very few, rarely, things come out of it. But in this case of port, as I said, is
Yes,
a double-edged something.
Yes.
It's tangible.
Tangible is
on
infrastructure.
on the other hand,
Yes,
your critics will now say, didn't I tell you that everything about this is about the Yoruba land?
Even though some people will say the ports, the major ports are already there.
But you could say, strategically thinking, he's a strategic man. Why don't I, in terms of bringing this agreement, instead of just the port, maybe I get one that will add to it, is in Kaduna, is in East, just to give a sense of that it's not all that is not just all about Lagos. So this is what we're saying. Yeah, he's a he's a lion and a fox in the political game. But when you come back to your domestic audience, even though you get this applause, and they start to deconstruct and interrogate the thing, the opposition is then armed and say, look, this is what is happening. It's the same thing we tell you about urbanization. So now, whatever has happened, the benefits of that trip becomes negated. But I say that it could have been better managed, given the sensibility, given the moral geography we operate in the country.
Now, but what are you then saying? That we shouldn't celebrate as much when we hear MOU, because a lot of times when they come, they say we've been to this, we've signed.
Well, it doesn't say it means nothing. It's just like if you go to a jumbo or a trade fair, you meet somebody you are potentially interested in what they are doing. Yeah, we can sign an MOU. But that doesn't mean you are committing money. But we don't want to take away the significance that this is a very good diplomatic outing for the country. So obviously, as I said, the other things,
we have to balance it up.
That tree that produces a lot of fruits will attract a number of people to throw stone.
Yeah.
So now that you have elevated yourself now on the global stage, people are also, including the outsiders you're trying to impress, they will also come to interrogate you. And such interrogations will include interrogating the people you're working with. True.
Now, I would like to move towards, I think you've touched on it, there are a lot of play going on in the West African region. Obviously with France. We have the US playing its own game and redefining the way world order and relationships are. When you look at us and you look at Nigeria so far, how do you think we're managing the politics of our foreign policy, I mean?
Well, there are several determinants of foreign policy. It doesn't exist independent of your domestic issues. Okay. So we are constrained. Tinubu, like Obasanjo, adopted what you can call very personal diplomacy, traveling here and there, a lot of economic diplomacy. Under Jonathan, actually, they started to think, historically, we say we operate what they call a concentric circle, in which Africa should be at the centerpiece of our foreign policy. You start with West Africa, start with the country itself, say national security, West Africa stability, African unity, and then you go out to the world. And they've tried under Jonathan to see whether they can redefine it and say, look, I think it was Ojo Madeko and the rest of them say, no, going forward, our foreign policy will be driven by what we can get out of a relationship, which elsewhere I critiqued it as not foreign policy, but mercantilism. So if you look at first of all, we are surrounded a lot, all the countries in our, mostly French-speaking. You ask ourselves, given Nigeria's closeness to France now, has it impacted? How does it impact our relationship? Obviously, intra-trade within the West Africa is not that much. It's roughly I think 400 and something billion, So it could be more, it could do better. But I don't think we have the same kind of respect we had before. And you see it manifesting.
Why do you think so? What do you think led to that?
Because I say there's a nexus between your domestic environment and domestic policies and the way you're respected, fractious elites, economic policies that Nigeria becoming a lot of more people under multidimensional poverty. We can no longer be assertive, in some of your investments that should be coming to Nigeria going to Ghana and others. So the value, the way people look at us in the international arena is also changing. For example, look at what happened with the BRICS. When they wanted to expand, South Africa was the first, obviously. And the second expansion, who did they invite? It was Ethiopia, it was Egypt. And if you know the symbolism of this, when Nigeria have been agitating, campaigning for a seat in the United Nations, you know that's a big minus for us. South Africa is seen as the number one. Of course, obviously it has overtaken us as number one, the largest economy. It's the most technologically developed. It's the bridge between the black world and the white world. So they take one spot. Remember, there were talks at that time there will be two spots. And Nigeria was angling to become one of the people who get a spot. Now, Ethiopia is historically the head of African Union. So it's now in contention. It's also the fastest growing economy in Africa. Then you come to Egypt, the oldest civilization in Africa is the bridge between us and the Arab world. So you can see that increasingly we're being pushed aside. You look at even the G20, only recently we've lost a lot of grounds. It's not that those grounds cannot be made up, but you can only make it up when you have a leadership that enjoys universal legitimacy, not sectional legitimacy, and then consciously try to build consensus among the different factions of the elite. One thing I respect, one thing you can say for Tinubu, whether you like him or not, he has no fear of any ethnic or religious faction of Nigerian elites, which is a good thing. He doesn't fear that you are this, you are entitled. No, he has no fear of such, which then he can be able to use to translate, to become a leader, global, national leader. And I think something he needs also to look into.
And you feel that leadership also helps as we're trying to find our place and balance as we navigate this world?
Navigate, yes. I think so. I think if he's able to achieve a measure of this, when we talk about elite consensus, it's mostly a consensus among the different ethnic, religious factions of the Nigerian political class. It will not be 100% consensus. And the fact that people are jumping into your party does not necessarily mean consensus. Some doing it out as a self-preservation, out of fear, because there's no alternative. Because ADC, unfortunately, has not learned any lesson from or refused to learn the lesson from the PDP, and for which I don't think anybody, let's wish it for best, but it has to get itself, better organized.
I would like, we're still going to go into politics, because I would like us to look at the way the economics and the way we're trying to get the country to be on better footing may be affected by the fact that we're going to elections. But I would like us to, I'm not sure I got you clearly on the way you see us managing the politics of the U.S., new relationships. It appears everybody in the world right now, as stated by the Prime Minister of Canada, should understand that the old order has gone. And so you need to make new relationships and be the one that is in control. Are we doing that? That's the point I think I want
Nigeria on its own cannot do it on its own. In international relations, there's what we call the balance of power theory, which is that once one hegemon moves to disequilibrate the system, the way the system works, you can see the others banding together in order to restore equilibrium. Probably that's what is beginning to happen now, with the European Union and NATO members refusing to come to the aid of Donald Trump. You can also see the BRICS economy are wondering, because all along they wanted to create an alternative universe. So we're looking at them now. One thing that this has shown, Britain saying, look, we're not going to provide this thing to you, and NATO clearly taking a position that is antithetical to what he wants. A couple of months ago, people were just keeping quiet, hoping that it will stop our tariffs. So now what we can see is that countries probably, it's still too early, probably are moving now to restore equilibrium. That's this hegemon. NATO is disrespected. Nobody is anything if you are not America first. But for how long will it continue? That balance of power theory, for me, is now beginning to play up, where you see a number of countries. And as a smaller country, Nigeria is not a member of BRICS, but is now,
It has a seat on the side table.
So others now will find out how you, without trying to, anger Trump, because you don't know what he will say next time. But it will come to a point where even what he says may not carry so much weight if most of the world are now standing together. This position by NATO, by European countries, that you started this war, they said, and they don't know what it is about. We're not going to give you our base. So that becomes a countervailing move. That as a country, you have to see it in that light. Well, this is US, we still need him because we don't know whether this is a short term, whether this, and well, this is a developing thing. So that's probably what Britain and the rest are doing too. We put one leg here and put the other leg here and see where the...
And don't do any sharp movement.
No sharp movement. That's why I say diplomacy now. Remember, it's diplomacy. And they find a diplomat, somebody who can ask you to go to hell. And you'll be looking forward to when the journey will start.
I wanted us to look at the general before we come to the specific. For a lot of Nigerians, they don't really know about all this play on the global stage. What they want is what is going on ground. And they have a leadership and a system, a presidency and an administration in place to make sure that happens. They don't want to be bogged down by the terms or the details. So, but if you're a scholar of governance and development, if you look at what we have on ground now, we've spoken, I know you and I spoke when the administration just came into office. We're past the 2-year mark now. What's your assessment of the foundational structure so far economically for the country?
Well, what I can tell you is that Nigerians are very resilient. They adapt to situations. Apart from adaptation, there are metrics you can use to judge whether the economy or a government is doing something well. You ask the question, are you better off today than you were 2 years ago? Are you more optimistic of the future than you were 2 years ago? Do you think the government is heading in the right direction than you were 2 years ago? But let me tell you, every government, irrespective of one, will have loads of critics. And a bold government is one that can ignore critics. Not ignore, that's leadership is to showing the way. But at a point now, we are going to bring in this stream of good news, quote unquote, say the inflation is moderating. Obviously, somebody wrote a book, I think Hopman, which you call lying with statistics, which you can easily lie with statistics without being, if you change the base year, if in economics you tell me that the economy is recovered, and you use maybe the worst year, maybe you use 2024 or 2023 as your base year of comparison, you can see it goes very bad. If you shift the base year, say, to last year, it starts to look good. So what they have been trying to do is to play with the base years. That's my opinion. And there has been a time where the food prices went down. But in Nigeria, they say, apart from food prices, that Nigerian goods, they don't obey the law of physics. That when they go up,
the price goes up. Doesn't seem to.
So we Nigerians are still waiting. There are a few things. I have people in terms of bringing money for pension funds, money for the school, people to get loan and all. These are things that needs to be tweaked. A few policies are going well, but let me also tell you, there's no government that will stay 1 year in office without having something it has done well, even by the law of unintended consequences. I tell you an example. When the Somali state failed, the economy started to boom. So it's not because the economy failed, the unintended consequences. The same way, no government can stay for 1 year without having mistakes it has made.
Okay, but so what's your assessment of it so far?
No, I leave it to individuals. Are you better off today than you were 2 years ago? I just mentioned the metrics that you can use. Are you more optimistic of the future today than you were 2 years ago? Are you more secure today Do you feel more secure today than you were? Any other thing will be to rely on what we call moral geography or economy of affection. Either I like him or I don't like him, or he comes from my area, I don't come from my area. So it's either moral geography or it's economy of affection. Whichever one, they are not valid metrics. If you really want to develop metrics, they will center, even people who use questionnaire will ask you questions around this one. Are you better off?
Yeah, but you know the argument the government makes is that they will tell you that the issues that were confronting the country were there before. And that so there's a wrestling back, and they will tell you that building a structure that has broken down is not. So when I ask, I'm trying to take it beyond what the ordinary citizen will say, because some people will tell you that, yes, there is a time of strain before the time of gain. So, but I'm saying from your point of knowledge, do you think there are things being done that can justify whatever, when you ask Nigeria, your life's better now than before, they'll be able to say, if they say no, you'll be like, okay, it's possibly because.
No, in any system, there must be beneficiaries.
Yes.
So that's why it's good to develop metrics. Okay. Because if I say no, it's not being done, you are doing very general. Yeah. There are people who have benefited. But let me tell you one economist that said, this is what we hear from the time, tighten your belt, yes, and all this. It's going to be. But one economist said that in the long run, we are dead. In the long run, if you will, because they say, if you do this and do this in the long run, we will be better off. If that man that is tightening the belt and nothing is left, he may not survive to wait for the to wait until the long run comes. So in the long run, we say we're all dead. So we have to do something in the interim. So the question is here: they've come with palliatives and all this. How many people were lifted? The number of people out of school children are increasing. The number of people that incidence of poverty, general metrics, they are increasing. Having said that, it doesn't mean maybe there are 2 or 3 ways where, for example, the foreign exchange market has opened. It's possible it will bring back the portfolio investors, but as you know, they are like bubbles. Once they say anything again, they'll run away. So there may be other things, and there is always a need to be fed. Even in a desert, there are people who can make money out of it. So in this period of desert, there is in this period of hardship or anything, somebody can identify 1 or 2 needs, as happened under structural adjustment. Under Babangida's SAP, many people became billionaires because they saw a need. And they locked in. Maybe not enough critical mass will see those needs.
Now, but where do you place the position of which you mentioned earlier, the IMFs, the World Bank, that are saluting the reforms and writing glory? I can't remember which of the heads came here and said Nigeria is now a reference point. There's no time she talks at events that she doesn't use us as an example positively.
I can tell you the World Bank, from their first development plan, they have always been at the masterminds. As a matter of fact, if you look at the structural adjustment program, which I thought, it was really IMF, World Bank. At a point, we were talking about cross-conditionalities. If you don't even get imprimatur, the IMF, World Bank will not give you project loan. You will not even be able to reschedule your. When that failed, and they did everything possible to make it work in Ghana by pumping in a lot of money. Remember, the mantra was roll back the state. Float your exchange rate. Basically what we are doing now. And when that failed, the same IMF, World Bank, they came back now and blamed the African governments for not implementing it well. The next mantra was bringing back the state. And that's when they started to talk about good government. Remember the first mantra, that the state was responsible for distorting the economy and leading to underdevelopment. As a matter of fact, historically, they've always been the ones providing the advice. But when it fails, they blame you on poor implementation. So after the SAP failed and eviscerated the middle class, what you had was they came back with a new mantra. It became the dominant theme in the literature. Now, it's no longer rolling back the state, but bringing back the state. The same state you said. And they were still the architect. The back report of 1981 was the whole intellectual blueprint that led to structural adjustment. It's still IMF, World Bank thinkers that came back with bringing back the state, and they said, no, it's no longer strongman, it's institution, just a new word for something there. So this is what we are going to look at. It's a historical pattern. If this doesn't work, and many Nigerians are not convinced it's working, if this doesn't work, they will blame it on implementation.
And so we should not be celebrating the way we celebrate that when we quote them that they are happy. It could be that they are happy because their policy favors their own.
Check all those people that got awards in the previous government, even under Jonathan and all this. Buhari will come, once you come around and then bring on your own, because after this government, whichever government succeeds, it will also open its own backside. And it's just a pattern in Nigerian politics. And the same external people that validated you will still invite the other man to invalidate or woman to invalidate, because their interest is not you as a person, but the state.
So your look on the reforms are not generic. You don't feel they are actually the thinking of this government per se?
Because I don't see there is really nothing. Floating the exchange rate was there under Babangida.
Okay.
You have this foreign exchange market, all those things float the naira. Rolling back the state, that's privatization. What else? And then remove subsidy, desubsidization. The only difference is that he said he's doing it in one go. Others have been removing it in piecemeal. So it's still the same neoliberal economic policy.
Yeah, but coming from the point we were, where it looked like the alternative was not working. This looked like the road, because part of what they keep saying is that almost every candidate that came out saw that as the way to go.
Now, let me tell you my own position.
Yes.
How do you think it will affect the economy if the corruption in the subsidy regime was removed, and say the price of fuel, which affects the price of everything, was just like, say, 200 naira? Did you think that it was going to affect the entire thing? You didn't think so? Because there's still, how much is being used to subsidize the electricity market?
So there's still subsidies?
No, even then, some people are arguing that there's still subsidy going on. So I'm not saying, but I'm just saying that every regime that comes, even at the state sub-national level, they will make you feel that there's never been any governance until they came on board. It is only when they leave that we will know the extent to which they will have accomplished something. There's no government who will not leave one legacy. And then there's no government who will not have areas where they have not really done very well.
For a lot of people, I think the wonder for us is, it appears for about 10 years now, we've been on the issue of insecurity. It's become a popular refrain for anybody during elections. I'm going to address the issue of insecurity. Does it look like we've evolved in our handling of the issues confronting us as a country?
Well, I think the government is trying its best. But even the people you are dealing with, they're also evolving. So if you look at Boko Haram, it's ISWAP and other separatist tendencies. They have also evolved in their strategies. So we don't have enough personnel. And if you look at many parts of the world, they are in that era where they are confronting a number of challenges. So it's not really something unique to us. But as I said, a major reason why we feel like that is that sense many people are alienated from the national system. This sense of alienation gives impression, rightly or wrongly, that if you move into a different kind of contraption, you better feel secured. So people are not talking about what they call true federalism, which there's nothing like that anyway, which is more like a confederation you had in the First Republic. To people asking for separatist movements or different Biafra or Duduwa Republic, Caliphate, Boko Haram. So it's important for the government. It's not something that can be done overnight. There is question of grievances. And quite often grievances, whether Boko Haram, whether separatists, whether are better addressed by not just sending people to go and kill off everybody. As much as possible, kinetics and non-kinetics should be used. But also understanding and respect the basis of people's alienation. And that cuts across. There is an institutionalized memory of hurt among several groups in the country, not just from one part of the country. So when you listen and we start to think of what kind of arrangement we do, yes, I understand people talked about multi-layered policing. I understand the fear, because whatever little democracy we have is only at the national level. That's just the truth. If I can probably critique the government, and probably they will not call me to question me about terrorism financing. If I go to a state and criticize a governor there, I might not come out of it. That's just the nature of it. They are imperial lords at the state. So the fears are legitimate, but the counter argument is that if the federal government controls the security agencies, also use them. Let us try to see if it will solve the problem, and then try to evolve and see if we can, along the line, be putting measures in place.
Yeah, but can I just understand from where you are right now?
Yeah.
When you talk about the issue of hurt, that applies to in-country. Where we have communal issues, where we have maybe land issues, maybe where we have men who are taking up arms and maybe going to kidnapping and all. When we have the issue of terrorism, and for a large number we feel they are from outside the country, that issue will not work.
I'm not sure. I mean, some people say it's for political correctness that we blame this thing. Banditry, you don't say is outside. Separatist movements are not outside.
Yeah, true.
So if you look at the grouse, if somebody feels they are marginal and alienated from this, because it's one thing they all share in common, whether you're a bandit or anything, there's something about alienation that maybe this is stifling, this is not giving them the space to realize their potential, rightly or wrongly. You'll be asking yourself, for example, why is it the Southwest? They produce Obasanjo as military head of state, Obasanjo as civilian, Yemi Oshibanjo as vice president, Tinubu, and there's still separatist agitation there. So these are the questions that are grievances and hurts. And until we're able to not just say, look, my own grievances are more genuine than your own, and we want to be able to allow people to see clearly that we are better being together than my being alone. And this is not by we're going to preach, say, look, Nigeria, you change the national anthem. No, that's not it. As patriotism, somebody says, is the last refuge of the scoundrel. So it becomes clear. If you look at the UK and Canada, when there is a referendum, you have one group saying, better together than alone. And because the benefits of being there are clear, if any group feels that they are being suppressed, it will create some resistant groups inside. So this is something we have not been able to address, the issue of memory and how we can respect one another. And it's not going to be done in one day.
But it's something we need to look at. I would like to take you briefly on the issue of the politics. Right now, we're going on to the shadow of the elections.
Yeah.
And to a lot of people, the issue of governance will appear to take a backseat. What's your take on as we go now? How do you look at the landscape politically?
Well, landscape now is that the way I look at it is we don't have a viable opposition, but that doesn't mean the government will not fit opposition, because it's not only political parties.
I don't think I don't think I understand that. What do you mean when you say we don't have, but doesn't mean they
are not viable?
Okay.
I use the word viable.
Okay.
I mean, if you have very viable, like at the time ADC was formed, and they didn't play the ostrich. Playing the ostrich is that, for example, exactly what killed the PDP. This is a very sensitive country where what we call moral geography is very, very strong. And after a northerner has been president, you want another. It's even people that don't like Tinubu, they'll feel angry. You understand? So the same thing that probably decapitated the PDP is what the APC didn't realize. And that's what saved the APC with El-Rufai. They come out and make a statement no, this power is for 8 years is for the South. You know, you playing around the way they were perambulating in PDP and even those who are championing for regional, complaining they were not getting message. No, make it fair. And you are telling make it fair, which is an euphemism for look, let power return again. Such things is hypocrisy. Because you say, okay, of course, in Nigerian peculiar mode of distributing privileges, the assumption is that the North has the political level, the South holds the economic power. But that's neither here nor there, you understand? So those who have that mentality will always want power to come back. In 2003, just 4 years after Obasanjo, Buhari started contesting and winning virtually all the northern states. Then again now, Tinubu, whether you like him or not, people really, they just feel this is not going to be well. And this is, so people, they lost the advantage of what they could have done very early. And if they had done it maybe by now, 3 or 4 governors who have decamped to them. But because they didn't do it, there was nothing else to go. So people are joining the moving train. So in that sense, the political landscape, unless something magical happens, but having the good thing about us is that we have still vibrant Nigerians. It could come under Buhari. It was the Southeast that provided the opposition. The individuals, you have Showore, you have a very dark man, you have Femi Fola. Individuals that don't care will say their mind. So in that case, I think the opportunity for expressing ourselves will not be completely foreclosed.
In 2023, we saw a very, well, not unique, but a blossoming of youth activism with the obedient movement and all, and it really changed all the dynamics. You don't have structure. It turned out not to be an issue. Do you see something like that happening again?
Yeah, because, you know, you're also dealing with somebody who has been in this game for something. So he has moved to, he's doing his best to make sure that that doesn't pose a threat to him. So when El-Rufai moved very quickly to move to STP, he played his own game of getting the South to start the campaign. And once it is the campaign and there was no activity happening in the ADC, others felt, well, if I stay here, this is a machine politics. In machine politics, it's totalitarian. You either support the leader or they will come after you. So you can see now that, well, there's no alternative, so I better join them. Otherwise, before even you say that, you're out.
When you look at this, the scene right now, and for people who want to vote, a lot of times they are looking for people they can trust, but they are also looking at the Nigerian politician. They see them, all of them jump to one party, like we have all the governors. Is there anything for a Nigerian to look forward to as you look at elections, or is it the same group of?
For me, I don't even believe, let's say, let me not talk about myself. Do you believe your vote will count? Or would they ask you to go to court? Do you expect that it will? So I don't see the people jumping as opportunists. There's what we call the rational actor model. Are you being rational, an economic and rational person to say, look, if I decide to be here, do I want to just be on opposition? Do I want to win? If I don't join, what will happen? I mean, not every politician is Jonathan. And so you do your own calculations. Even Bala Mohammed, he's been rumored to want to join APC. He has been almost the last man standing. You know, I don't take my Makinde very serious. Apologies. But so it is. I think ADC is missing its chance. In fact, I think it's probably too late for ADC.
So you feel the cast is, the die is cast for?
I don't know. You never know what. There's always that what we call the fog of war. One variable you miss that will come and become the game changer. But if it had from the time it came up and not behaved like the PDP and learned a lesson from the PDP and say, this is the direction we're going. And immediately people will fall in line. By now, once you get 2-3 governors joining in, it will solidify. But you start playing the same game of open primary and everything, you know.
Well, I would like to thank you very much. It's been how do I put it, an enriching conversation for me, and I hope for all those that have listened. But we'll keep watching the country, watching our politics, and we'll see where we'll go.
Yeah,
thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The path for Nigeria, both at home and abroad, is not an easy one. It's a journey filled with delicate decisions and the need for careful choices. And as citizens, we must keep our eyes open to see the choices the government will make. We'd love to hear your thoughts on tonight's discussion. Share your views with us through our social media platforms or send us an email. Now, following our recent conversation with the Director General of NIMSI, we received feedback from viewers. Adebayo Adeosun wrote on YouTube, says, it is very hard to do corrections on the self-actualization app regarding name, phone number, email address, and date of birth. David Solomon says it's a very good initiative from NIMSI. Evans Long Life, his view is that how can I do corrections on name and date of birth? For Akin Odudimu, about modifying your information on NIMSI, how does the system verify your identity when updating from the corner of your room? Very interesting one there. Well, thank you for writing in, and we encourage you to keep engaging with us. And if you missed any part of tonight's program or you want to revisit previous episodes, head over to our YouTube channel, click on playlist, search for Newsnight, and just browse through and take your pick. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for being with us. Stay safe and bye.